fuck just happened? We all got fucking murdered. And now we're here again.
So the night is just gonna repeat itself.
I don't remember that happening last time.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Overcast. I'm Justin.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Brooksy.
And together we're bringing you movie reviews on a partially cloudy day. So this is going to be a spoiler cast for the movie Until Dawn. Loosely based on the game, and a good portion of that we'll be talking about more later on. But if you're new to our spoiler casts, we do a spoiler-free discussion in the beginning, like a typical review, like our media corner, except it's all three of us. Then we give a rating, and then after the rating, we will transition over into spoilers. Now, during the episode where Deacon was a guest, Nick already gave this a media corner entry, so we kind of know his spoiler-free thoughts for the most part. And I hadn't seen the movie yet, but I had input on that. The only person who hasn't talked about this yet is Brooksy. So we'd like to get your spoiler-free thoughts right here and now.
Oh man. Okay. So...
Before that, I'm sorry, I forgot to do this part. The basic premise of this for the audience, by the way, is a bunch of kids go to a cabin looking for one of their missing sister, and they end up at a place where they get stuck in a sort of roguelike time loop, where if all of them die before the timer runs out, they have to start over from the next night, facing a new threat each night, and the only way to escape the loop is to survive until dawn. So... All right.
So, I know the three of us have talked off podcasts about me not being overly enthusiastic about seeing this Until Dawn movie. Like, when the initial announcement about it came out, I was incredibly excited. Love the game. Was very excited to see what they were going to do with it. Upon seeing the initial trailer, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be for me. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit through this. But for the sake of podcasts and really just curiosity killing the cat, like I wanted to see it. There were a lot of high moments for me, but there were also quite a bit of low moments for me in this movie.
That's kind of how I walked away from it feeling too.
Yeah, it's, I will say, like, if this movie was not called Until Dawn, and they called it something else, or they completely pulled away any Sony likeness to it, I genuinely think I would have had a lot more fun with this movie. I think it would have been like just a kind of run-in-the-mill, serviceable, campy slasher kind of, Happy Death Day-esque version of a good horror movie.
Happy Death Day meets Cabin in the Woods was definitely what I got out of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like it definitely has those two elements. There are moments that I would say, really honestly, the first half of the movie, I honestly kind of enjoyed it. Like, I genuinely kind of enjoyed it. Like, it was just a little silly, a little goofy, and and it was just, it was just fun trope horror. As the movie kind of went towards its second half, it felt like it really tried to almost over explain itself to whoever is watching the movie, as far as like what is happening. Like, I guess, like, what is the word? Exposition?
Yep.
Like, it was way too much. Like, way too much, and it really pulled away. And exposition's fine if it's serviceable to the original content, and it just did not feel like that to me. Yes, there were a lot of really cool, fun Easter eggs that did get me a little bit excited throughout it. But by and large, like, as a Until Dawn movie adaptation esque of a video game, it did fall very flat for me.
So
if this was
that might be the only part where we differ in terms of I actually think the movie got better as it started tying into the game versus the first half of it, where it in the first half it kind of does feel like your typical cliche slasher movie and everyone's a cliche character, but that also fits in perfectly with the whole point of Supermassive's games, like the games they make, Until Dawn, The Quarry, The Dark Pictures. Everyone is a caricature. They're toying with different horror genres with each one, and I think a lot of that shines through into the point where this is 100% a video game movie because it's a movie that feels like a video game.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that was an intentional by design. There's even a point where they perfectly replicate the don't move sections from the game. And I thought that was a really nice touch. It is, I think, the exposition without spoilers that ties it into the lore of the game that, in a way, you could argue that this movie, and you do have to have, it does recontextualize the lore of the game if it's canonical, but you could argue that this movie was a prequel to the game.
And I very well can see that, especially, and again, like, I want to avoid any spoilers about the movie. I will say I felt violent rage at the very end of the movie.
Really?
Like,
I thought that was one of the coolest parts.
I thought it was.
No, I wholeheartedly disagree because I was like, why the fuck didn't you give me that from the beginning? What, like?
Well, I think the point, once you get the context of how all of this comes to be and why it comes to be, it recontextualizes the original game, if you remember. And now the game I have no problem spoiling here because it's 1,000 years old at this point.
Right.
But when you find out that all the therapist stuff is in Josh's mind, I think that ties in nicely to that little speech at the end of the movie, and how that, in a way, you could almost kind of look at Josh's actions in the game in a completely different light after the events of this movie.
And I think, and that's the thing, I think that may be a big factor into why I have a more visceral reaction than either of you two have, is because I've played Until Dawn. I've played through it twice.
Oh, I have too. I got the platinum.
Yeah, I played through it twice. Once just on my own, another time with my wife because I wanted her to make the decisions throughout the entire game. But it's been, it feels like it's been I don't want to say a full decade, but getting close to a full decade because I played it relatively, shortly after release. I think
the original game came out in 2015.
Yep.
Oh yeah, so it has been a decade. So that's the thing is and I played it with Sam very early on in our relationship. So this would have been 2016, 2017.
Okay.
So you have to think. I'm trying to hark back to what I remember of the game from 9 years ago, and I think that may have been why I had as much of a frustrated reaction towards the ending, and I was like, I just wish it was that, but that was the story, not what happens at the very end.
Well, and I think that they're trying to make it look like, the story that you already know is next,
a part of
they're next. They're the next experiment, basically. Yeah. And that does recontextualize everything, including the Wendigos.
And that's the thing. So that's why I think it would also be important now that I've watched this movie, I feel like it would be important for me to go back and replay Until Dawn and then come back and rewatch the movie again to see it through
a chance to play the remake.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It would give me a chance to play through the remake, but but at the same time, I also have to look at this as like, if I do that, like, am I going to be watching this movie through more rose-tinted, glasses at this point, where it's just like I'm humming and hawing about it, like,
Well, tastes are allowed to
You
change.
know,
I'll tell you, when
yeah.
I was younger, I hated The Departed and Inglourious Bastards. I thought they were both slow and boring. I watched them again when I was older, and I think they're two of the best movies I've ever seen. So,
I'm not a big fan of The Departed, but I will say, sorry, I every time I see that movie, yeah, The Departed. But I do love
get it.
Inglourious
I get it.
Bastards.
Now, Nick did the media corner for this, and he defended it to high heaven. And why? Because before I saw this movie, I was ripping it apart during his media corner. I was saying they should have just called it Cabin in the Woods Part 2, the way he was explaining it. Nick was like, no. There's a good reason this is called Until Dawn. Nick, do you want to give your spoiler-free reasons again why you think this actually works as an adaptation?
Okay.
Is it because they say Until Dawn?
So
No, no, that's the stupidest reason.
the Until Dawn title makes sense because there is Easter eggs in this movie, strategically placed, mind you, but Easter eggs for people that have played the game.
Yeah.
There was a pretty goddamn big Easter egg in the final confrontation.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, and I trust, and I will say, because like what's funny is I don't remember. I do remember the story. I just don't remember like super vivid details of the story, but I do remember specific like items that I could very easily be like, oh, that's from the game. Oh, that's also from the game.
And
oh, that's also from the game.
There are some other things too. There are some parts where like there's a part where a character gets up and they're surrounded by a bunch of top half mannequins with creepy masks on, and that felt a lot like those pop-up mannequins that scare you in the game based off the things you chose what scare you,
Right.
And the picture, the drawing of the werewolf on the table was a clear nod to The Quarry,
Yeah. That's the thing is like there are some that like were really cool, but there were also a fair amount that just it kind of felt like it was a little not forced is a bad word, but it felt like they knew that this game was going to either really, really excite people like Nick or really piss off people like me.
And then you have me who's firmly in the middle. Like,
right, exactly. And for me, I'm like, you're just trying to shove this crap in to make me feel better. Guess what? It's not working, Sony.
I knew it was going to be like this. I knew it was going to be like this, which is why I wanted to do this. I was like, we're going to have Nick glazing the hell out of it. We're going to have Brooksy picking it apart, and we're going to have me playing peer mediator saying, it's all right. But
That's
see, though, it doesn't sound like you hated it, though. It sounds like
I didn't
you said
hate
that
it. Like,
you actually kind of enjoyed it, but you enjoyed the first half more. And that's the only part where I think we really differ, is I think the second half was better. But and the only reason for that is because I feel like the movie didn't deliver fully on its promise. I was expecting more variety, and I'll get more into it in the spoilers, but I definitely feel like there's a point where the movie kind of realized it was running out of time and just kind of sped things up and rushed to the end.
No, I would agree with you, but and that's the thing. Like, again, I didn't hate this movie. Did I like it? I feel like it was. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this.
I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Like, it's I have problems,
but it's not even a.
It's a serviceable horror movie, though. I will say that.
Like, that's the thing, is like, it is, for me, it's a serviceable horror movie, but for me personally, it was not a good adaptation of Until Dawn or the universe that it created. It had plenty of nods, but it did not it didn't have the same, it didn't have a lot of the same tone, it didn't have a lot of the same pacing. It felt off at times. It felt a bit forced at times of trying to make
Yeah.
references to the original game, and for that I didn't. That's why I didn't like it. So like, as a horror movie, I would have given this a 7. Looking at it strictly through the lens of a adaptation of Until Dawn, the video game, I would have given this movie a 5.
Nick, you had something you were trying to say a second ago.
Yes, so there's a reason I have such I've glazed the shit out of it, as you said, because
Yeah.
I have gone back and played this game more times than I can count on my hands and feet.
Yeah, he's platinum hunting
This
in the
is-
remake right
dude,
now.
Yes, I am.
Ah,
I this game, it was. I know I played Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. This was the first game of its kind that I truly immersed myself with, even more so than the others that I had played prior to this.
Would you say that any that you've played after it have been as immersive in terms of Dark Pictures or The Quarry or Frank Stone?
I didn't connect.
All the same developer, by the way.
Right, yes. I didn't quite. I loved the stories, but I didn't quite connect with them as well as I did for Until Dawn.
Fair enough. Because you want to know what's wild? Out of all of them, Until Dawn included, my favorite game of theirs so far is actually The Devil in Me,
Okay.
the fourth Dark Pictures game.
See,
Because of the Saw stuff, primarily.
Fair enough.
If I'm being honest.
Until Dawn got a 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb.
The movie, yeah.
Yes, the movie.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, here's the one thing I will say, though. I don't know if I fully trust the internet's ratings on this one because a lot of people are having knee-jerk reactions to the fact that that it wasn't a shot-for-shot remake and
Yeah.
review bombing it without actually watching it, and that's fine. I didn't want to be that way. I wanted to give it a chance and see first, and I came out less disappointed than I thought I would, and that is actually
Fair
a
enough.
compliment. So, like, that's, because I didn't know what to expect, and I tried to temper my expectations, and because I went into it with two different brains, I was judging it both as a horror movie and as an adaptation, and I wanted to, much like you, Brooksy, find that balance in the middle between the two.
yeah.
Which is what I did.
Yeah.
In my
And
ultimate opinions at the end.
Yeah, and I will equally say I did walk away from the movie less pissed about it than I thought I was going to be, which I will steal from Justin, is a compliment in of itself. In of itself, I thought I was going to be like, this is a 2-0. I hated it.
So, did you enjoy it more than Lost Records?
Oh, that's a rude question. I want to plead the fifth on that one.
Okay.
I'm about the same. I think I'm about give or take roughly the same.
Honestly, because to me it sounds like you're going way easier on this movie than you did that game. So
Yeah, I don't know why. I wanted to like Lost Records. God, I wanted to like Lost Records.
I think maybe that's it. I think maybe you went into that expecting more and came out more disappointed, whereas this you went in with low expectations to begin with, and then
Yeah, that's a fair assessment of kind of my experience on both sides of Lost Records.
Honestly,
and
that's
Until Dawn the movie.
that's the only reason I like the Eternals, because I went in expecting an absolute dumpster fire, and it was slightly better than that. So I ended up liking it.
Yeah,
So,
it was just a slightly ashy pile of trash.
how was it? I put it when I reviewed. What was it? What's that horror movie last year? The Bear, the one with the bear. Imaginary. Was that?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Teddy Bear. I'm like, Cocaine Bear. That was a few years ago. That was a
no,
comedy.
No, not it. The horror movie with the evil teddy bear, Imaginary. Yeah, I think I gave that a 6 out of 10. I remember on my review, Nick asked me, "Was it a dumpster fire?" And I was like, "No, it was more of a smoldering garbage can." Which is probably So, what I will say, though, like, because I definitely want to give the movie some compliments where they're deserved, too. I do like the creativity in the different threats every night. It's just that I feel like that creativity runs out very fast. And I do think the acting in this is actually good. And it's going to be weird to say because they act like your typical cliche horror movie caricatures, but it's intentional, so I think it's done well. And Peter Stormare, obviously, is a phenomenal actor, so he's just good anyways. But the rest of them, like these, I didn't hate these people. I hated Abe because he's kind of like the dumb jock dickhead, but the rest of the characters, I think, are actually kind of likable, which is also like a switch up from the usual formula for this type of thing. There's usually at least 3 of them are complete dickheads, so you don't care when they die. But this movie has genuine character development, which is something that I do have to compliment it for, because they're not just throwaway characters. You kind of actually want them to win, you know. At least I did. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah.
But I actually cared about some of these people.
Absolutely.
Especially Max and Clover.
That's the thing. Like outside of like, I did like Max. I did like Clover. Like, I don't know. Like,
I like Nina too.
And that's the thing is like for me, like they were fine, but they were just like it felt like the relationship between all of them felt about as cliche as I could get. And I honestly had forgotten Nina's name until you said Nina. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what her name was. And I watched it yesterday.
I recognize her because she kind of, it's not the same actress, but she kind of looks like the sister in Talk to Me. Like similar getup, nose ring and all that. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
She's very, like, even the same hair and everything. Very similar getup. I give this a pass on the characters being cliche, though, because literally the whole point of Until Dawn was that it was a love letter to all other horror genres, and the characters were cliche on purpose because it was literally the video game version of Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
And if you've seen that movie, you know that, like, it's so meta how the characters weren't that way at first, but then they're made to be that way as it's part of the quote-unquote show.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And Supermassive, obviously, like, that was the whole point, because all of their games hit a different genre. And Until Dawn was meant to be a throwback to, like, 80s campy teen slashers. So, but that's the reason I like it, is because that's how they all start out. But as the story progresses and they start to become more and more traumatized throughout the night, I feel like some of them at least go through genuine character development. You know,
there is one thing that I think Nina said that really made sense with why they went through multiple different threats. What's more terrifying than not knowing what comes next?
Megan said that.
Oh, Megan, did you hear that? That was Megan. Okay.
Yeah. I like literally just watched this before we started, so it helps to have this all fresh. Obviously, for those who don't remember, Clover is the main protagonist. Max is her ex-boyfriend. Abe is the big stupid jock guy. Nina is the curly-haired, tattoo girl, and Megan is the psychic Asian girl.
Yes.
So that, by the way, is she actually psychic? Are we supposed to believe that? Or was there just a lot of coincidences happening?
No, I think she has some sort of an ability.
Do you think? Or do you think it was just normal intuition being read as something else? Like, I don't know. Because, like, obviously this is a world of magic and monsters, so it's entirely possible it can exist. You know, it's
Yeah,
not,
absolutely.
It's not out of the realm of possibility in this reality. But,
True.
what do you think, Brooksy? Is it, like, were her powers legit? Megan?
Kinda, yeah. Kinda.
I mean...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, the one scene where she knows exactly where to find the map, to me, could just be pure coincidence. But, like, there are some other things where it's kind of like, yeah. But, like, also, I, too, would get a bad vibe if I pulled up to a house in the middle of nowhere with a grave outside of it. That's not exactly...
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the entire time, I mean, they're heading, like every other trope horror film like this, like, they're all instinctively heading towards the terrible thing. Like, even while they're at the at the gas station, they're like, "Hey, don't go up there," and they're like, "Well, we're gonna go up there."
Right. I love how Peter Stormare plays the cliche gas
Yes.
station clerk that warns the teenagers about the danger. That's how I know it's intentional. That's how I know the cliche
Right.
formula and characters are intentional, because this is based on a supermassive game, and that's what they do. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
No, and that's the thing. So, like, but there's always, and I feel like in a lot of movies like this, there's always the one person that's like, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't do this," or "Hey, I feel like this is this," and everyone's like, "Shut up, nerd." And I think that's I think it's exactly kind of what was happening, where it's like, I could see it being like a supernatural, but I also feel like it's just also like gut instinct, intuition, and a little bit of luck at the same time.
I will say there is humor in this movie too. It's very dry and sarcastic, but there were a couple of moments that actually got an audible laugh out of me. There's like 3 different lines in the movie. I can't remember exactly what they were now, but I know at least 2 of them came from Abe, and I thought they were genuinely funny lines.
one of them for me came from Nina.
What was it?
Him first.
Oh, him first. Yeah. Yeah, him first was funny in like a dark and morbid way, in like that
Yes.
that nihilistic nothing matters way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That was almost a Rick and Morty joke, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
that's
I
the
can
kind
see
of
it.
joke you'd find in Rick and Morty right there. You remember the scene we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Didn't want to give context yet, but well, as far as all that goes, I think we've pretty much covered as much ground as we can on spoiler-free stuff. I think that's pretty much everything there. All else I'll say is I'm pretty sure they used practical effects for the gore in this, because a lot of it looked really good.
You did.
I will say
They
well done visuals.
Yes, they did actually. I read it up earlier today. They did use quite a few practical effects, and they actually talk a lot about how they use those practical effects when they come out with their Blu-ray version of this movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ooh.
I'd like to see those behind the scenes, in some way.
Yeah.
All right. So before we transition into spoilers, we will give our final rating on this. I danced around with this for a while. I wasn't sure where to fully land on it, but I think it's a 7 out of 10 for me. I was dancing between that and 7.5, but the more I think about it, and after watching it twice, the more I think it's actually a 7. Nick, has your rating changed since your Media Corner entry?
Nope, it's still a 10 out of 10 for me.
All right. And Brooksy.
Yeah. And then there's me. As a horror movie, I would have rated it as a 7 if I looked at this strictly as just an adaptation of Until Dawn. Would have given it a 5, so I'm going to land in between the two, and I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10.
Okay. So you're not too far behind me,
No.
No,
That's the thing.
I think that might be the closest we've ever been next to South of Midnight on something.
Really, I think I would agree with you on that. And that's the thing is like, and I think like just from the way you've talked about this movie and the way I've talked about this movie, like it's been relatively on par. I just sound slightly more disappointed than you do.
Well, we're about to get into the meat and gravy of that because it's time to transition into the spoilers for people who are listening. If you haven't seen this and you want to and don't want it spoiled for you, this is your last chance to vamoose because we're going to transition into the spoilers. And so if you have seen this or you don't care, stick around and enjoy.
Is anyone getting a signal?
I am. Bad one.
Great.
All right. Here we are at the spoiler side of the discussion. This is your final warning if you don't want to be spoiled. 3, 2, 1. Safety off. Spoiler time now.
All right. So the name of the town that the gas station attendant or Dr. Hill warned them not to go to was Glore Valley.
Yes. Which is a different location from the game, I think.
Yes.
But I am to believe that it takes place in the same universe. So yeah, let's get the big thing out of the way first. The gas station attendant played by Peter Stormare, they wanted you to think that he was just playing a different character in this movie because the big twist later on is that it is actually Dr. Hill from the game. And apparently he worked for the asylum that he's worked, well, not only for the sanatorium in the town that he's in now, but he also apparently worked for the Blackwood Asylum that you visit in the game as Mike, the abandoned one, when it was up and running.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to clarify, that's actually not the part I was upset about. It was the camera footage that they showed of the actual house the cabin that Until Dawn is based off of, where I'm like, what the fuck could this movie just been about the cabin? Okay, fine. It's just really rude just to flicker that at me. Like,
I mean, how do you adapt that game into a movie without making certain choices canonical?
I need canonical choices, okay? I don't like decisions. I wanted the canon.
It ruins the whole point of the game. If you play the remake, there is a new ending, like a post-credit, that I think is considered the canonical ending. So,
now I need to play the remaster. Damn it. Okay, thank God I don't have an endless backlog.
But that being said, though, I do think without that ending, without that stinger, this is not an Until Dawn movie.
No, definitely not.
Well, that and Dr. Hill. I mean, Dr. Hill ties it because you can put Wendigos in anything. You know, that's not the meat. But that's the other thing too. The Wendigos. So what we're supposed to believe now is that, and it recontextualizes the entire game, is that Dr. Hill, who is apparently not human because he can't be, and I'll tell you why. The asylum was up and running back in the 40s, so he wouldn't still be alive right now if he was. And if he worked there. And there is a VR game called The Inpatient that actually shows you how everything went down when everyone first started turning into Wendigos for the very first time in that asylum. And they do, in this movie, they cover the mine collapse that they talk about that also happened in the game and all that other stuff too. So all the lore is there. It's just that some of that lore has now been recontextualized. Wendigos are no longer the direct result of cannibalism, but rather the result of people facing continuous trauma over and over again and slowly transforming into them. It's like Dr. Hill is experimenting on people by putting them in these time loops so he can slowly turn them into Wendigos and add them to his collection. And so for me, I think it recontextualizes the original game to where he manipulated Josh into doing everything that he did in the game in order to turn all of his friends into Wendigos, in order to bring them into his little menacing collection.
The other Easter egg that I had noticed was Josh Washington's psychiatric report on Dr. Hill's desk.
Well, yeah, and that's because this guy was Josh's therapist, but in his head. But I will say that therapist's office at the end of the movie, almost an exact replica of the one from Josh's mind that he talks to him in the game.
Scary on point.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I can see like the film theorists or somebody on YouTube like doing like a 3-hour video breaking down how this works, but I will say it can fit. This movie fits into the lore of the games. It's just that in order for it to fit, it has to recontextualize stuff that you thought you knew. It retcons things, basically. It changes the already existing lore, and you have to play some mental gymnastics to make it work, but it does work. You know, it fits. It fits. It's a very tight fit, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a comfortable fit, but it does squeeze in there. You know what I mean? I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on that. Like, do you think like this movie recontextualizes the lore of the game for better or worse in that
Honestly,
regard?
I think I don't know how to explain it, but it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, is the game better or worse if it turns out that Dr. Hill had been manipulating Josh the whole time? Like, for real.
I feel like it would make it for me. I feel like it would make it worse, but I'm also not a subject matter expert like Nick is on this, and I have not played this game to the point of every ending and every single possible scenario in a platinum.
Fair enough.
After seeing what Dr. Hill was capable of in the movie, I think, yeah, that definitely it makes it. Dr. Hill's a bad person.
Correct. Yeah, he's obviously the antagonist, but what I thought was interesting was that all of the threats that they faced throughout the night were all manifestations of Clover's different psychological issues. And except for the Wendigos, which are real, but he said it's all real. It's just that it's all coming from her. So apparently wherever they were, you know, and I guess this is kind of obvious from the fact that the rain stops there and it's like a barrier. It's obviously some kind of cursed or magic land where this kind of shit is possible. You know what I mean?
Before you move any further, I want to address...
nightmares come to life.
Yes, I want to address the rain wall.
Okay.
Abe had said it was something he thought it was called water wall, because there's a song about it, water wall. No, he got it confused with Wonder Wall.
Yeah. Well, that was supposed to be funny because he's an idiot.
Yes.
You know, like that's obviously the dumb jock.
I thought
trope.
it was funny.
In regards to the monsters and mayhem, though, let me ask you guys, what was your favorite creature or whatever, or threat in this movie? Like, if you had to pick one altogether. Out of everything we've seen, and that includes the video clips.
Oh, I didn't... Okay. Didn't expand on that.
I mean, for me, like, it was, even though it wasn't even though there's no way to be able to have it be the literal exact same version from the Until Dawn game, because Josh does but doesn't exist. He exists, but he's never seen in the movie. Getting to see like the original mask that he wore in the Until Dawn game being referenced and being used as just like a monster that's in this world.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool to me, because I was like, hey, it's the Thing. That's not Josh, though. Like...
No, it's not him. It's a manifestation of Clover's fears, but yeah, it's...
Yeah, it was just cool to see. It was cool to see the creature in the actual game. Like, obviously, again, not Josh, but for me, it was just like, that was a reference that I didn't expect that I thought was a pretty cool addition.
I'm not gonna lie, for me, it was the spontaneous combustion water.
Okay. I didn't realize we were talking about deaths. I thought we were talking about
No.
creatures.
Well, no,
The
that
water
counts.
was the best thing.
Well, I said creatures or threats or whatever. To me, the water counts as a threat because it's added in the third night as another obstacle they have to avoid on top of everything else.
And they literally just had like 10 minutes left, and instead they got to watch someone go, Pop Goes the Weasel, legs, stomach, and all. It was just like,
Oh god, that was nuts.
That was so cool.
Oh yeah, they did Megan dirty on that one. Everyone else got to explode immediately, but she had to suffer.
Yeah, that was a bit rough.
That was rough. It was sick though.
I do think the witch lady was pretty creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I think she was well designed. I like that scene where, like, when Clover's trying to leave the house, and when she messes with the doorknob, and then the lady finally slowly turns and looks at her, and you're like, "Oh, shit's about to get real."
So
I love when they do camera tricks like that, and just add a little creep to the atmosphere. You know.
for me, it's the Wendigo, and I'll explain. The one scene that you get hit with a double jump scare is my favorite jump scare of the movie.
Is it the one where it pops up in the doorframe window?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. When they're watching the other one play with a doll down the hallway?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that one did get me. It's probably the only jump scare in the entire movie that actually got me, though.
Now, I will say the giant troll that we see when Abe and Nina
try to drive away.
It did give me slight Wendigo vibes.
Yeah, actually, that I got more like Norse folklore vibes from that.
Okay.
I do want to say though, to me, and I'm kind of like, one of the disappointing things for me was that they fast forward so many days. Like at one point they wake up and it's been 13 days and they just have to like go back and watch clips of all the other threats they missed. And I was like, that's so much wasted potential. Like if the movie, like maybe you remove some things or maybe you go just a little bit longer, you could have actually done some of those. But I will say there's one I'm glad that they only did the clip of, because I think like the one-time encounter with it is much more frightening just because it is so like short and unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when they're all stuck in that red hallway and they turn around and that big lurching Babadook looking thing comes fucking down the hallway at them. That was the scariest goddamn moment in the entire movie, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't know, just something, because what it reminded me of was one of the most frightening scenes in It Follows, which also involves a hallway and a lurching creature coming down it. And it just, I got that same creepy, like, the more it came down the hallway, the bigger it got. And I don't like that. that stuff fucks with me a lot. And, like, it's the big lurching abnormality fucking shit. It's, that thing
that
was...
Wendigo.
That thing actually made me
That was a Wendigo.
Oh. No, not that. No. I'm talking about the giant big black cloak with a mask and a top hat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys remember. It was in the video clips on the phone when they were watching, remember? Because, like, there's the one where the worm goes into her face and then her whole face looks infected.
Yes, okay, yeah.
And they're going through the clips. One of those clips was that, they're in a red hallway, there's a fire door, and they're like, it's locked. They turn around, they're like, what is that? What the fuck is that? And then it's you see nothing but just a mask in the darkness, and then slowly the darkness starts moving down the hallway and gets bigger and bigger and just completely envelops them. And that was fucking horrifying, honestly. Especially from a first-person camera perspective. Like, ugh, that part gave me the shudders. So, props on that. I'm not sure if there's anything in this movie that got to either of you like that, but if there is, please share.
No. Actually, I
Fair enough.
one thing that I did think was really cool was getting to see the transformation from human to Wendigo.
Yeah, so there was that. And I think that's also where they tie into some of the... That's why I told you to watch that Let's Play of The Inpatient I did, because I think it gives more lore to the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it definitely feels like some of that footage was from, from that time, so that they used.
Yeah.
So it does tie in. It's just, I will say, obviously the movie's changing the lore of the game for how Wendigo's come to be, but it's also not wrong, because Wendigo lore is different depending on where you're getting it from.
Yeah.
Yep.
In some stories it's about cannibalism, in other stories it's about, like this movie where they transform because of the trauma they're going through, the fear and all that, and that's a thing too.
And I will say, like, both myself, my wife, and really honestly everyone that lives in this household really do take like a very like spiritual and holistic look on life, and especially through witchcraft, which is why you've actually never heard me say the name throughout any reference towards that creature, just because it is a bad omen to say the name out loud. And I'm like, and that's why I get silent quite a bit. I'm like, I'm just gonna be quiet over here.
He said, I don't want to summon the bad spirits.
No, I'm good, dude. I already have enough bad juju happening on my normal day-to-day life, even trying to get on this podcast today. Like,
I mean,
extra.
We weren't going to be able to talk about this movie without saying the name of the creatures.
I'm fully aware, which is why I was like, yeah, I got this. Like, I did want to watch it, but I also didn't want to watch it, but I also wanted to talk about it. But for these reasons, I'm like, this is going to be hard to dance around.
Can we all agree, though, I think, that one of the best scenes in the whole movie, both from a filming, a lighting, and a reference to the game perspective, is that clear nod to the don't move sections in the games where she's hiding from the Wendigo as the red light flashes in the background and it slowly approaches?
I mean, it almost felt like a shot-for-shot moment, just with Clover instead, from an exact moment that you experience in the actual
game.
video game.
Yeah, that was definitely intentional.
Yeah, that was a very, very cool moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely one of the best moments in the movie. By the way, if Clover and Max don't get back together after this, then what a bunch of wasted potential,
Right?
Because like nothing will bring you closer together than dying 13 times.
Exactly. One thing that I did that made a lot of sense, knowing what was happening to them over the course of those 13 nights, was survive the night or become part of it.
Mm-hmm. And the Wendigo is part of the night, is it not?
It sure is. And that's what they were how, I don't know, because none of them were showed any cannibalistic actions, but they were still somehow transforming.
Like I said, it still recontextualizes the lore. That's not entirely true, though, because in the videotape that they showed of the guy slowly turning into one, he was definitely eating people at certain points in there. I'm 100% sure. Maybe it wasn't people, but I think you were supposed to believe that it was.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, too, though. In the game, the only reason that they turn into those after eating someone, after resorting to cannibalism, is because they're on cursed land. That's the point, is that the land is cursed. And in this movie, the land is also cursed. So
true.
There's one of two things here. Either Dr. Hill is Satan, or Until Dawn takes place in Silent Hill. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like the game and the movie, because both are cursed land. They were very clear about that in both of them. They didn't try to shy away from that. Like, the entire goddamn town that this movie takes place in is cursed.
Yeah.
And And in the game, the log cabin on the mountains is cursed because it's on Native American burial grounds, another common trope. So, and obviously, I think the original origin of Wendigo lore comes from Native American folklore. So, I do think that's the main origin for it overall.
So, backing up a little bit to the setup of the story where these guys get together to go find Clover's sister, Melanie. Oh, they find her, but she's a Wendigo. She became part of the night.
Yes. Yeah, she definitely did. I will say, though, fantastic work on their designs, by the way. The monsters, like...
Yes.
Like, the teeth, the eyes, the skin, they look pretty much exactly like they did in the game.
Yeah, they did.
Maybe a little more humanized than they were in the game. In the game, they were kind of like sharp-toothed golems, but in here, they still retain some of their humanity, almost like zombies, in a way.
Yeah.
What did you think of their design in the movie, Brooksy?
Compared to the game itself, it didn't feel as terrifying. I still liked it. It felt serviceable. Like a lot of how I felt about a majority of the aspects of the tie-ins to the original kind of Until Dawn aspect felt serviceable, and I didn't get the heebie-jeebies about them in the movie as much as I did playing through the game itself.
Well, also, they kind of acted like a swarm of zombies more than a swarm of golems, you know?
Yeah. Like a little bit less intelligence than the creatures that you come across in the game itself.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They were more human than animal, I think, in their current state. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Like they still retain some humanoid features, as in the game they were more, I dare say, even lizard-like in a lot of ways.
But I did like them in the movie. Did I love it? Did I like it as much or more than the game? No, but I did think they were cool.
Yeah, no, it's overall. So let's see. I don't think I had anything else. I think I pointed out my main frustration was the fact that they sped through so much of what could have been they could have montaged a lot of those kills, honestly, instead of it being like on videotapes and shit. If they were going to do it that way, that might have worked better, especially with the slight self-aware aspect they were going for. It would have fit the tone perfectly.
Oh yeah.
But overall, that and the fact that you really have to stretch your suspension of disbelief for the lore to fit. It does fit, but you have to. It's like in Kingdom Hearts when they wrote themselves into a corner and then brought back everyone that died in order to start a new story.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like they just completely not erased, but recontextualized everything that came before. And
that's that's how I feel about it. Like I was joking with Sam about it last night. I was like, it's kind of like if you were trying to put a square peg in a round hole. If you have a big enough hammer, it will fit. It absolutely, you can make it happen. Is it the most seamless process? No, it's not. But again, as you said, like if you suspend your belief, like it can work, and I'm kind of right there alongside with you on that.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't hate it, and I do appreciate what they were trying to do, and I do think if I went back and played the game again and then watched the movie again, like you said, if I tried hard enough, I could probably sit there and pick apart ways that it works. You know, like I could make it fit. you know, because it does. It's not impossible. It's just that now what you thought you knew from the game is no longer what you knew in order for it to work. You know.
Yep.
That's it's almost like a new plot twist thrown in retroactively. So we're going to wrap up here in a second. Any final thoughts on this from either of you? Anything we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about here.
Yes, I've got some notes here.
Okay.
So a few things. The one thing that Dr. Hill had said, there's a way to get out, but not without a price. Someone has to die.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going through this being like, oh, one of us is going to have to die. Clover somehow has a meeting with Dr. Hill, and when he has his back turned, she moves his coffee cup just slightly to drip some of that spontaneous combustion water into his cup, and then moves it back before he turns back around, and he takes a sip. And I mean, they paid the price.
Yeah.
Or
two
he-
things about that, though.
He paid the price.
Two things about that, though. One, he's not dead, obviously, because he has to be there for until dawn, and you can hear him whistling when those TV cameras come up at the end, which
Yeah.
is why I believe he's not human. Obviously, he's like another, like, the curator from the Dark Pictures. It's something more than human, something unnatural.
Yeah.
And the other thing, that little switcheroo with the water and stuff, I think the movie thinks that part was more clever than it actually was. Just because it's kind of like, obviously pride cometh before the fall, but I think you have to be blind as hell to not see that. So the only way I can justify it is that he let it happen on purpose, knowing he was going to come back anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe not, because he did seem genuinely surprised and angry when he realized what happened. So I don't know. It just seems, for a guy that smart, that's a pretty fucking stupid thing to fall for.
Yeah.
Especially when he knows that the water does what it does in the first place. The fact that he even put his mug where he did, the only thing I can think is that he was letting his hubris get the better of him.
Yeah.
And she took advantage of that while he was humble bragging. That's the only thing I can think of. Is just it's such an anticlimactic way to get rid of the villain, though, honestly.
Yeah. One thing that
It's a nice fuck you, though.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. One thing that you touched on before we started was Josh and adding more Wendigos to his Wendigo army.
Oh, yeah, no, I said that, I've said that since we started. I mentioned that.
Okay.
I do think that is the whole, that if the movie recontextualizes the game, then it changes the game so that Josh was under the influence of Dr. Hill the whole time.
Okay.
And that entire game was really just Dr. Hill trying to turn more people into Wendigos.
Got it.
That is, to me, that's the only way that it works as an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
The only Easter egg that not even really I had pointed out, but Sam had pointed out, is whenever you get to the convenience store scene where Dr. Hill's enjoying their part-time job as a cashier, the actual convenience store that he works at is called Hartley's, and Sam had pointed out, I was like, isn't that the last name of the asshole guy with the glasses in the video game? And I was like,
I didn't even pick that up.
Yeah, it is. I was like, she's like, I hated that guy, and I'm like, I know you did. And I was like, clearly enough that you remembered his last name years later. Like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I did go look it up later on. I'm like, oh yeah, no, they actually called the convenience store Hartley's, which is based off of Josh Hartley.
Okay.
Or Chris Hartley, not Josh.
Chris, yeah, Chris. Yeah, I remember him. Chris, he was in love with Ashley.
Yes.
They, there are, I guess since you're planning on playing it anyways, I won't spoil it, but there are some things in the remake that are different. The entire prologue has like 15 minutes worth of extra cutscenes that kind of add more depth to the characters, I guess you could say.
Of the ones that disappear in the very beginning of the game?
Yeah.
No, just like the whole group. The whole everyone.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
Like everything leading up to the prank that causes what happens.
Got it.
There's more there. Like I said, there's an extra post-credit scene. There's a few other things. They even removed, so like in the game where if in one of Josh's fake traps, if you choose to shoot Ashley when playing as Chris, later when he's running from a real Wendigo, she won't open the door for him and he'll end up getting his head tore off. That potential death has been removed from the remake.
Oh.
Yeah.
Odd.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think it's been replaced with a different one. So.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So they have, they made some changes, definitely. I watched the Dead Meat kill count for the Until Dawn game, and they pointed out the differences because they used the remake for the kill count. So they pointed out some of the differences in it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I had noticed that hadn't been, not even that I had noticed, Sam had noticed that wasn't mentioned.
All right, well, folks, that'll wrap it up for our Until Dawn spoiler cast. You got the thoughts. Until Dawn, the movie, can now be rented or purchased digitally. It's available on a lot of the digital rental and purchase places, but not streaming free anywhere yet. But you can get your hands on it now. So, alrighty. For those of you who are watching this
Such a good movie.
For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, let me know your thoughts about the movie in the comments down below. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it. You can also comment on Spotify or send me an email at podcastoversoul@gmail.com. My co-hosts have been Nick, who is the Gaming Fiend 1, and you can find him on pretty much all the social media platforms. And Brooksy is on Instagram as Brooksy My Boy with an I at the end. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Oh, you know what? Water wall.
What?
I think it's called, a water wall.
That sounds made up as hell.
No, that's what the song is from.